6 months after his highly publicized divorce, millionaire Lucas Bennett felt his heart stop the moment he spotted his pregnant ex-wife, Olivia, working quietly as a waitress at his own wedding reception. Questions immediately flooded his mind. Who was the father of her unborn child? What happened to her life after their bitter split? The truth about to surface would stun everyone and force Lucas to confront the consequences of his choices. Years ago, Ethan and Mia had been the couple everyone admired. College sweethearts, they had started from nothing, supporting each other through every difficulty. Their early days were filled with laughter, endless talks about their future, and Mia's unwavering belief in Ethan's dreams. She willingly put her own goals aside, working long hours to financially support them while Ethan struggled to get his business off the ground. His venture was risky, and most believed it would fail, but Mia's confidence in him never faltered. When success finally arrived, it came quickly and dramatically. Ethan's company took off, transforming their modest lives into ones filled with wealth and luxury. They married quietly, choosing a small ceremony that reflected their love rather than Ethan's newfound riches. For a short while, everything felt perfect, as if all their struggles had been worth it. But as Ethan's business empire grew, so did his obsession with success and public image. Nights at home turned into endless business trips, networking dinners, and late-night meetings. Gradually, the close bond he and Mia shared started to fade. Mia felt the distance first, noticing the loneliness and the silence between them. Ethan's constant distraction by his phone made her feel invisible. Initially, Mia tried to brush off her hurt, hoping it was just temporary. She convinced herself Ethan would eventually notice her again, returning to the man she fell in love with. But days turned into months, and months became years. Ethan became someone else entirely, polished, driven, and increasingly distant. As his focus shifted entirely toward the demands of his business, Mia's resentment grew silently. She never voiced her feelings, fearing she might seem ungrateful or unsupportive. Instead, she quietly watched Ethan charm investors, clients, and celebrities, his smiles genuine only when aimed at everyone except her. Mia started to question whether she still belonged in Ethan's new life or if she was simply a reminder of his past, a past he had clearly left behind. Then Sophia entered Ethan's life. Bright, ambitious, and stunning, she quickly stood out as an employee in Ethan's company. At first, Sophia was just another face, but her sharp mind and clever insights soon captured Ethan's attention. Gradually, she became a permanent fixture in his daily routine, joining important meetings and accompanying him on trips. Sophia was careful. She never openly showed her interest or disrespect towards Mia. Instead, she carefully positioned herself as Ethan's trusted assistant, subtly flattering him in ways that made him feel valued. Mia noticed the change immediately. Ethan began frequently mentioning Sophia at home, always praising her talent and contributions to the business. But what truly bothered Mia wasn't the compliments, it was the genuine admiration in Ethan's voice, something she hadn't heard directed towards her in years. For the first time, Mia felt jealousy stirring deeply. Their marriage reached a breaking point when a crucial business deal failed. Ethan, stressed and exhausted, brought his frustration home, often lashing out at Mia unfairly. Sophia saw her chance, planting subtle doubts in Ethan's mind, suggesting that Mia wasn't supporting him enough, and that their arguments were far more problematic than Ethan realized. Everything shattered completely on their 6th wedding anniversary. Mia planned a romantic dinner at home, cooking Ethan's favorite meal, setting candles, and wearing the dress he once adored. She desperately hoped to reconnect, to remind him of the love they'd once shared. But Ethan never arrived. Hours later, he walked in casually, dressed impeccably, smelling of champagne and expensive perfume. "You missed our anniversary," Mia said softly, her voice trembling. Ethan barely glanced at her. "I had an event tonight. I told you." Her eyes filled with tears. An event? Or another evening spent with Sophia? Ethan's expression hardened instantly. What's that supposed to mean? The argument erupted quickly, all of Mia's bottled-up hurt pouring out uncontrollably. She accused Ethan of prioritizing his business and Sophia over their marriage. Ethan angrily fired back, claiming everything he'd done was for their future. Mia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Ethan, this success is only for you. You stopped seeing me years ago." Words flew heatedly back and forth until Mia, shaking and exhausted, packed a small suitcase. She hoped desperately that Ethan would stop her, beg her to stay. But he stood silently, pridefully watching as she walked out the door. That night, as Mia cried alone in a hotel room, Ethan sat in their empty home, stubbornly refusing to admit he had made a mistake. Sophia seized her opportunity, comforting Ethan and whispering exactly what he wanted to hear, that Mia was holding him back, and he deserved someone who truly understood him. Exhausted and vulnerable, Ethan believed her. When he later mentioned divorce, Mia quietly agreed, leaving without revealing the new life growing inside her. Before we continue the story, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us keep making stories like this. 6 months later, Ethan's lavish wedding reception to Sophia was the event of the season. The ballroom was filled with influential people, sparkling chandeliers, and endless champagne. To outsiders, Ethan and Sophia were the perfect power couple, beautiful, wealthy, and admired. Yet beneath his confident smile, Ethan felt a strange emptiness he couldn't ignore. As the celebration continued, Ethan stepped aside briefly, needing air. Near the edge of the room, he noticed a waitress quietly clearing plates. Something about her seemed familiar. Then she turned slightly, revealing her face clearly. Ethan's heart stopped. It was Mia, and she was unmistakably pregnant. Ethan stood frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. Mia looked tired, her expression guarded, yet still beautiful in his eyes. But the most striking thing was the unmistakable curve of her belly beneath the plain waitress uniform. Countless thoughts and questions surged through his mind. Was he the father? Why hadn't she said anything? He hesitated briefly, then quickly walked toward Mia, dodging guests who tried to greet him along the way. As Mia noticed Ethan approaching, she visibly tensed, gripping her tray tighter. "Mia," Ethan began softly, his voice strained with emotion. "What are you doing here?" She straightened her posture, trying to appear unaffected. "I'm working, Ethan." "What does it look like?" Ethan's gaze dropped to her stomach again, his voice trembling as he spoke. "You're pregnant." Mia stayed silent, her eyes filled with pain, resentment, and unspoken hurt. Her silence said everything Ethan feared. He felt a whirlwind of guilt, anger, and confusion hit him all at once. "I need to talk to you," Ethan insisted gently. "Somewhere private." "No," Mia replied firmly, her voice barely holding steady. "You lost the right to ask me anything a long time ago." Before Ethan could say more, Mia quickly turned away, disappearing into the crowd. Across the room, Sophia watched their exchange carefully. Her pleasant smile slipped for a moment, suspicion flickering in her eyes. Excusing herself from a conversation, she swiftly approached Ethan. "Who was that?" Sophia asked sharply, her eyes narrow with suspicion. "Just an old acquaintance," Ethan responded evasively, avoiding eye contact. Sophia glanced toward Mia, her eyes darkening. "It looked like more than that," she insisted. When Ethan remained silent, Sophia's grip on his arm tightened. "We'll discuss this later," she whispered coldly, pulling him firmly back to their guests. But Ethan couldn't let it go. Later in the evening, spotting Mia entering a quiet hallway, he followed her quickly. He found her placing trays onto his serving cart near the kitchen doors. Mia sighed deeply when she saw him approach again. "What do you want now, Ethan?" she asked quietly, her voice tired. "I have to know," Ethan pleaded, desperation clear in his voice. "Is it mine?" Mia hesitated, considering for a moment whether to hide the truth. But something in his voice, a genuine pain she hadn't heard in years, made her reconsider. "Yes, Ethan," she finally admitted, her voice firm and clear. "It's your child." Her words struck Ethan deeply, shaking him visibly. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice filled with hurt. Mia's eyes flashed angrily. "Because you didn't care, Ethan. You had Sophia and your business. I wasn't going to beg you for attention." Before Ethan could respond, the sharp click of Sophia's heels echoed down the hallway again. Sophia appeared, her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What's happening here?" she demanded, looking from Ethan to Mia. Mia stepped back, her expression guarded. "Nothing," she said firmly, quickly leaving through the kitchen door. Sophia turned to Ethan, her voice dangerously calm. "We have guests waiting. Come on." Later that week, unable to shake his confusion and guilt, Ethan tracked Mia down. He managed to find her address, a small apartment in a modest neighborhood, nothing like their previous home. Gathering courage, he knocked softly on her door. Mia opened the door and instantly stiffened. "Why are you here, Ethan?" He held up a bag of groceries. "I brought you a few things." "Just groceries." She crossed her arms, defensive and wary. "I don't need your help." "I know," Ethan said gently, his tone sincere. "But I want to help anyway." Mia sighed, reluctantly stepping aside. Ethan entered, noticing the neatly folded baby clothes, a crib waiting in the corner, and an ultrasound image pinned to the fridge. His chest tightened painfully as guilt surged through him. "Nice place," he said awkwardly. Mia let out a bitter laugh. "It's not your mansion, but it works." Ethan turned toward her softly. Mia, I don't. She interrupted sharply. You don't get to walk back in just because you feel guilty. I've managed without you. It's not just guilt, Ethan insisted, stepping closer. I know I failed you, but I want to make things right. Please, let me be there for you and our baby. Mia shook her head angrily. No? After months of struggling alone while you lived your perfect life. It was never perfect, Ethan admitted quietly. Mia turned away bitterly. Just go, Ethan. Ethan didn't press her further that night. But before leaving, he made one clear promise. I'm not giving up this time. Ethan kept his word. He began visiting regularly, always bringing something useful, groceries, clothes, or her favorite food. At first, Mia resisted strongly, annoyed by his attempts. But slowly, his quiet determination started breaking down her defenses. Ethan wasn't simply sending money. He was consistently showing up, proving himself through steady actions. One afternoon, Ethan handed Mia a pamphlet. What's this? She asked suspiciously. Parenting classes, Ethan replied sincerely. I enrolled. I want to be ready to do this right. Mia stared at him, surprised, but said nothing. She saw a glimpse of the man she once loved, someone genuine and caring. The real turning point came during a doctor's appointment. After persistent requests, Mia finally agreed Ethan could join her. When the ultrasound technician revealed their baby's heartbeat, Ethan's breath caught in his throat, eyes filled with wonder. That's our baby, Mia whispered softly. Instinctively, Ethan reached for her hand, but she hesitated, pulling away slightly. This doesn't mean I forgive you. I understand, Ethan replied softly. I'm not asking yet. I just want to be here. As Mia's due date drew closer, Ethan became increasingly involved in her life. He wasn't perfect. There were moments his attempts to take charge clashed with Mia's newfound independence. But his sincerity showed through, and Mia cautiously allowed him to help more often. One evening, while assembling a crib together, Ethan paused to watch Mia quietly. What? Mia asked, noticing his gaze. He smiled softly. You're amazing, Mia. She rolled her eyes lightly, hiding a gentle smile. Slowly, the distance between them was shrinking, though Mia was still careful about trusting him fully again. One quiet night, as they folded tiny baby clothes, Mia finally voiced the worry she'd carried for so long. I don't know if I'll ever truly trust you again, Ethan. Ethan stopped folding, meeting her eyes earnestly. I understand. I'll spend the rest of my life earning your trust again. Mia didn't respond immediately, but she felt a spark of hope, a small chance he might truly mean those words. Meanwhile, Ethan couldn't escape nagging doubts about how quickly their marriage had fallen apart. Sophia's version of events suddenly seemed suspicious. Driven by curiosity, Ethan began searching through old emails at work, determined to uncover anything strange. It didn't take long before he found something troubling. A former assistant had abruptly quit around the same time he and Mia divorced. Intrigued, Ethan tracked down this assistant, wanting answers. Meeting privately, the former employee hesitated but eventually admitted everything. Sophia didn't hide how much she disliked Mia, she explained nervously. She always said Mia wasn't good enough for you, that she was holding you back. What exactly did Sophia do? Ethan pressed anxiously. The assistant looked away guiltily. Sophia convinced me to block communications from Mia, emails, messages, letters. Especially one emotional letter Mia wrote just before the breakup. Ethan felt sick hearing this. Why would you agree to that? I was afraid, she admitted softly. Sophia made it clear I could lose my job if I didn't cooperate. But I saved copies just in case. She handed Ethan a flash drive, adding softly, maybe this will help you. That evening, Ethan hurriedly plugged the drive into his laptop. The files he found shook him deeply. Emails revealed Sophia's clear plan to sabotage his marriage by isolating him from Mia. In one email, Sophia openly bragged about intercepting Mia's messages, even mocking her despair. Ethan felt furious and betrayed. Without hesitation, Ethan confronted Sophia that night. She was sitting calmly in their living room, sipping wine when Ethan approached her, cold and determined. We need to talk, Ethan said sharply, placing his laptop in front of her. Sophia raised an eyebrow. About. Ethan played a recording. Sophia's own voice filled the room, coldly describing how she'd manipulated Ethan away from Mia. Sophia's expression quickly changed from calm to panic. Where did you get that? She demanded angrily, jumping to her feet. That doesn't matter, Ethan replied firmly. You manipulated me. You deliberately destroyed my marriage. Sophia scoffed bitterly. Please, Ethan, your marriage was falling apart long before I stepped in. I just helped speed things up. Ethan's anger rose sharply. You deliberately kept Mia's messages from me. You destroyed everything important. Sophia's calm facade vanished. You're welcome, Ethan, she snapped viciously. Mia would have dragged you down. Without me, you'd still be ordinary. You didn't save me, Ethan said coldly. You ruined me. Without another word, Ethan left Sophia alone, furious and humiliated. The following days, Ethan compiled all evidence: the intercepted messages, Sophia's recorded admissions, and testimonies, presenting everything to his company's board. Horrified by Sophia's behavior, they swiftly removed her from the company, stripping her of her position and reputation. Overnight, Sophia's carefully built life collapsed. Sophia attempted to claim half Ethan's fortune and shares during their divorce, but the overwhelming evidence destroyed her case. The judge ruled in Ethan's favor, awarding Sophia only a fraction of her demands. Soon after, newspapers labeled Sophia a conniving opportunist who destroyed Ethan's first marriage. Her luxurious life shattered completely, leaving her alone and publicly humiliated. Free from Sophia's manipulations, Ethan now focused entirely on Mia and their child. He reduced his role at work, dedicating himself to repairing the relationships he'd neglected. One quiet evening, after their daughter was born, Ethan nervously knocked on Mia's door. Mia opened the door, gently holding their newborn, looking exhausted but happy. Ethan, she asked softly, surprised. I just needed to see you both, he said quietly, his voice emotional. Stepping aside, Mia let him in. Ethan carefully took his daughter into his arms, eyes filling with tears as he gazed down at her tiny face. She's beautiful, he whispered, deeply moved. Mia leaned against the doorway, watching him closely. You have a lot to prove, Ethan. Trust won't come easily. I know, he said earnestly, looking up at her. I'll do whatever it takes, I promise. They shared a quiet, meaningful glance. For the first time, a possibility of a new beginning felt real. The journey ahead was uncertain, but there was hope, a fragile but genuine chance at happiness. In the weeks following their daughter's birth, Ethan worked hard to rebuild trust with Mia. He was present at doctor visits, helped set up the nursery, and supported Mia in every possible way. His dedication slowly chipped away at Mia's hesitation, although full trust remained just out of reach. One afternoon, as they arranged their baby's room, Ethan glanced at Mia thoughtfully. What's on your mind? Mia asked, noticing his gaze. Ethan smiled gently. I was just thinking how lucky our daughter is to have you as her mom. Mia shook her head, smiling despite herself. Each day, Ethan seemed more like the person she had loved deeply, someone genuine and caring. But as Ethan became more involved in Mia's life, he kept replaying their past. Something still bothered him deeply. How had their relationship unraveled so quickly? The pieces didn't quite fit together. Remembering the manipulative role Sophia had played, Ethan decided to investigate further. Reviewing company files carefully, Ethan uncovered another disturbing detail. Just weeks before their separation, Sophia had quietly arranged the dismissal of another employee. Curious, Ethan tracked this person down. When they met, the former employee reluctantly agreed to speak, revealing yet another betrayal. Sophia made sure no one communicated with Mia, she admitted nervously. She told us Mia distracted you from success. We believed her, or at least we pretended to. Ethan listened, growing angrier. What else did Sophia do? The former employee hesitated, then quietly said, there was one email from Mia to you, urgent and emotional. Sophia made sure you never saw it. Ethan's jaw tightened with anger. What did it say? I don't know exactly, she replied apologetically. But Sophia bragged that Mia was practically begging you to reconsider your divorce. Ethan felt deeply shaken. Why didn't anyone tell me? Sophia controlled everything, she explained regretfully. We were afraid of losing our jobs. Ethan left the meeting furious, now completely convinced Sophia had purposely destroyed his marriage through manipulation and deception. Determined, Ethan took this information back to his lawyers, preparing legal action against Sophia. Meanwhile, Mia gradually adjusted to Ethan's involvement in their lives. One evening, as Ethan gently rocked their daughter to sleep, Mia finally opened up about her fears. I'm still afraid, Mia admitted quietly. What if you leave again, Ethan? Ethan carefully laid their sleeping daughter down, then turned to Mia. I know you're scared, he replied sincerely. I promise I won't hurt you again. I want nothing more than to rebuild what I destroyed. His words softened Mia's heart further. Although hesitant, she finally saw the possibility of a second chance. Days later, Ethan confronted Sophia again, this time armed with concrete evidence of her sabotage. He found her alone at a cafe, still bitter from her public downfall. You ruined everything, Ethan said coldly, placing the documents firmly on the table. Sophia barely glanced at them, bitter resentment clear in her eyes. You brought this upon yourself, Ethan. You let your feelings for Mia distract you. I only did what was necessary. You destroyed lives, Sophia, Ethan said firmly. And you'll finally answer for it. She laughed harshly, defiant until the very end. Do whatever you want, Ethan. It won't change your mistakes. But Ethan was determined. His legal team acted swiftly, presenting overwhelming evidence against Sophia to the courts. Her final attempts to fight were weak against the truth. Soon after, news broke publicly, detailing Sophia's manipulative actions, permanently destroying her remaining reputation. With Sophia finally out of the picture completely, Ethan dedicated himself entirely to Mia and their child. His efforts gradually paid off, creating moments of closeness and trust. He spent less time at work, choosing family dinners and quiet evenings at home instead. Slowly, the wounds of the past started to heal. One evening, Mia and Ethan walked together through the park, pushing their daughter gently in her stroller. Mia glanced at Ethan thoughtfully. Did you ever imagine we could be here again, together like this? Ethan shook his head, smiling softly. I hoped, but never dared to imagine you'd ever trust me again. Mia stopped, looking up at him. It won't be easy, Ethan, but I believe you're sincere. I'll do whatever it takes, Ethan replied earnestly, squeezing her hand reassuringly. Weeks later, Ethan officially stepped down from his CEO position, choosing to focus exclusively on his family. This decision surprised many, but Ethan knew it was the right choice. Soon, Mia and Ethan quietly remarried in a small, intimate ceremony, just a few close friends, their daughter cradled in Mia's arms. Standing together, exchanging heartfelt vows, both felt genuine happiness and renewed hope. After the wedding, Ethan carefully handed Mia a letter he'd found hidden among old company files, the very letter Mia wrote that Sophia had intercepted years ago. Mia opened it slowly, her eyes widening in shock and emotion as she recognized her own handwriting. She read aloud, voice trembling. Ethan, despite everything, I still love you. I want us to fight for our marriage, to find each other again. Please don't give up on us. Tears filled her eyes as she looked up at Ethan. If only you'd seen this back then. Ethan gently took her hands. I know, but maybe, in a strange way, all of this led us exactly here. Right where we're supposed to be. Mia smiled softly through her tears. They both knew rebuilding trust would take time, but now it felt possible. Together, holding their daughter closely, they finally had the family they'd always dreamed of. That night, sitting quietly together at home, Ethan looked at Mia with deep gratitude. Thank you, Mia, for giving me another chance. I'll spend every day proving you made the right decision. Mia rested her head gently on his shoulder. I know you will,